After an already challenging 14 months, I think for most businesses across the globe, certainly here in South Africa, one of the hardest hit industries in Mzansi is tourism. And while we are being encouraged to hashtag share South Africa and stimulate our local economy, we need to keep in mind the rising concerns of a third wave of coronavirus infections in the country. I know no one wants to talk about it, but we have to talk about it. And joining us today to share more on how this sector is coping and preparing is South African Tourism CEO, Mr. Sisa Ntshona. Sisa, thank you so much for joining us.
Morning, thank you.
Have you been vaccinated yet? Not yet.
No. We're all waiting.
We're all waiting, buddy. We're all waiting. But great to see you again in person.
Yeah.
Hopefully ahead of not a third wave, but we've got to brace for it.
We definitely have.
Yeah, look, absolutely. We are in tough times, and every single time we get a spike or a wave, it directly impacts tourism, because tourism is all about movement. And in order to curb, the third wave, we actually discourage from moving. So it's got a counterbalance, if we can call it that.
Sure. And it's a tricky one. It's a double-edged sword because you want to stay safe, but we need to get the economy going. Sisa, what is the current tourism state like in South Africa right now?
Yeah, well, maybe start with the world. Yeah. No one's traveling, right? And essentially, it's all about self-preservation at the moment. People are just really gravitating towards safety and are really kind of staying in the nucleus. The situation in South Africa is not that different. However, what we're seeing some green shoots where we're actually seeing South Africans discovering their own country. So we're all exploring our places. So if I had my way, I would wish for every weekend to be a long weekend because it just goes crazy. People just want to go anything with the bush, with the beach or a mountain, berg. And then I think that's really good support. Yeah, absolutely.
We're hoping, beginning of phase 2 vaccine rollout, that this has been the global light that's been held out in front of us. How much of a difference will this make within the South African context?
Oh, big. So the focus at the moment is all about vaccine rollout. So there's a vaccine index that everyone follows. And every country in the world is mapped into red, yellow, and green. We're bright red at the moment, so the quicker we can actually start to roll that up, we start moving up the index and turn to yellow and ultimately green. And all it is basically, it just gives a sense of everyone the level of risk that each country could potentially pose to them if they travel to it. So we got to get out and really roll out as quickly as possible.
And I mean, you mentioned South Africa is bright red on that list. We are one of the most restricted countries at the moment when it comes to being able to travel. What are we doing as a country or, from a tourism perspective to see that we can move up on that list and get out of the red?
Look, it's a multi-pronged thing. I think there's 3 things. The first one is essentially moving from that bright red and kind of moving up. And you've got to do that by a vaccine rollout. So that's kind of the first one. At the same time, there's also bilateral conversations happening at government-to-government level, in terms of making sure that they are making informed decisions, not based on this, South African variant, as it's so-called. Sure. It's not a South African variant, it's a variant of the world, essentially. We just discovered it and kind of reported to the world. And then thirdly, as well, is about this health and safety protocols that the tourism industry has put in place. I don't know how many times you guys kind of, sanitize your hands in one day. Everywhere you move. So it's just about having that regular practice of sanitizing, social distancing, and wearing masks.
Maybe to round this off, because something that I suppose weighs heavily on my mind, and I'm starting to see it as the golden fleece, if you will, the vaccine passport. Is there a global understanding as to what and how that will look like? How do you see that working out from a South African tourism perspective? Yeah,
look, it's something for the future, definitely. And all it is, it's a stamp of assurance that you have a vaccine, right? The issue becomes around geopolitics at the moment, because now not all vaccines are the same.
Exactly.
Right? So depending which vaccine you got may not allow you to enter certain countries, but they simply just don't recognize them. You've got China at the moment saying, listen, the only one who recognizes the Chinese vaccine. If you don't have that, sorry, as an example, right? And then the issue becomes now, how are you going to digitally store this? Under whose farm is it going to be on?
Yeah, which database?
Which databases and everything else? Can we agree on a common platform? And I think these are the issues that are going to be threshed out over the next couple of months. But end of the day, people just want to know, have you been vaccinated, which vaccine, and therefore gives you a level of comfort that you can move around.
So what you're saying is the world would be fine if it weren't for politics. Boy, hasn't Corona taught us a lot. I've got a huge amount of respect for what you guys have done as a sector to be able to bounce back as quickly as you have. I know we've still got a long way to go, but keep fighting the brave fight that you are. And I love the fact that part of that silver lining has been South Africans discovering South Africa again, because boy, there's a reason why the rest of the world wants to come here. So let's keep that trend going. But we'll certainly keep preaching that message, and hopefully people can take from this that once you can have the opportunity to get vaccinated, get vaccinated.
There we go. Sisa, thank you so much for joining us this morning. And to keep up to date with what's happening in the South African tourism industry, visit southafrica.net for all of the info.